Introduction. Susan sat in her car outside her son's school, hands trembling as she replayed the conversation from minutes before. 8-year-old Jake had casually mentioned that Daddy said she gets too upset when Jake tells her about their weekend adventures, so maybe it was better to keep some things just between us guys. The blood drained from her face as she realized what was happening. Her ex-husband wasn't just undermining her authority, he was systematically coaching their child to deceive her, creating a web of secrets that would isolate Jake from his mother while making her appear paranoid to anyone who might listen. For months, Susan had noticed the subtle changes. Jake would return from his father's house more withdrawn, more defiant, and strangely secretive about activities that should have been normal childhood experiences. When she asked questions, reasonable questions any caring parent would ask, Jake would shut down or respond with phrases that sounded eerily similar to his father's dismissive tone. That parking lot moment was Susan's wake-up call. She realized she had been playing by rules that didn't exist for her ex-husband, trying to be the reasonable co-parent while he systematically dismantled her relationship with their son. She was losing her child not through dramatic custody battles, but through 1,000 tiny manipulations that were invisible to teachers, family court, and even well-meaning friends who urged her to just get along for Jake's sake. But Susan didn't stay stuck in that parking lot despair. Over the following months, she transformed from a reactive victim into a strategic protector. She learned to document patterns instead of individual incidents, to respond with calculated calm instead of emotional appeals, and to build unshakable boundaries that protected both her and Jake without escalating the conflict or making her appear as the difficult parent. Today, 3 years later, Jake has a secure relationship with his mother, clear understanding of appropriate boundaries, and the emotional tools to navigate his father's ongoing manipulation attempts. Susan sleeps peacefully at night, knowing she has created predictable stability for her son, despite the chaos that continues to swirl around their co-parenting relationship. This transformation didn't happen through wishful thinking or generic co-parenting advice. It happened through specific strategic actions that any parent can learn and implement. Your Strategic Transformation Roadmap. This book exists for one critical reason: to provide you with a practical workshop-style roadmap for protecting your children while navigating the treacherous waters of co-parenting with a narcissistic ex-partner, all while maintaining your own sanity and legal standing. Unlike theoretical parenting books that assume both parents are acting in good faith, this guide acknowledges the harsh reality that you're dealing with someone who views co-parenting as a continuation of the relationship conflict by other means. Your ex-partner isn't interested in what's best for the children. They're interested in winning, controlling, and often punishing you through the children. This book will teach you how to create unshakable boundaries that actually work against manipulative tactics without escalating conflict or making you appear unreasonable to outside observers. You'll learn to protect your children from psychological harm while maintaining the co-parenting relationship that courts and society expect you to preserve. Most importantly, you'll discover how to create predictable stability and peace of mind for both yourself and your children, even when chaos continues to swirl around you. This isn't about changing your ex-partner, that's impossible. This is about changing your responses, strategies, and systems in ways that create protection and stability, regardless of their behavior. Every strategy in this book has been tested in real-world situations by parents who have successfully navigated these challenges. You're not getting theory, you're getting a battle-tested playbook for protecting what matters most. The Strategic Parent. This book is specifically designed for divorced or separated parents who have recognized narcissistic patterns in their co-parent and need concrete strategies to protect their children without becoming labeled as the difficult parent in family court. You might be reading this because you've noticed your child returning from visits more anxious, defiant, or secretive. Perhaps you've experienced the frustration of trying to maintain reasonable boundaries, only to be accused of being controlling or incooperative. You may have discovered that normal co-parenting advice not only doesn't work, but actually makes things worse when dealing with a narcissistic ex-partner. This book is for you if you're tired of walking on eggshells, tired of second-guessing your parental instincts, and tired of watching your children get caught in the crossfire of manipulation tactics. You want to protect your children's emotional well-being, but you also recognize that dramatic confrontations or obvious non-cooperation could backfire legally and socially. You need strategies that work within the system, approaches that family courts will view as reasonable, that teachers and other parents will see as appropriate, and that actually create the protection and stability your children desperately need. This book is also for you if you're ready to do the work. The strategies here require consistency, patience, and sometimes uncomfortable honesty about your own reactive patterns. But if you're willing to approach this challenge strategically rather than emotionally, you'll find tools that can transform your family's experience. Key traits of readers who will benefit most from this book. Parents who recognize they're dealing with manipulation but struggle to respond effectively. Those who want to protect their children without appearing uncooperative to courts. Parents ready to implement consistent strategies rather than hoping for change. Those willing to examine and adjust their own response patterns. You deserve to parent your children without constant manipulation and interference. Your children deserve to feel secure in their relationship with you, free from the psychological harm that comes from being used as weapons in an ongoing conflict. This book will show you how to create both. Your unique strategic advantage. Most co-parenting books are written for couples who are fundamentally committed to their children's well-being and simply need help navigating the logistics and emotions of divorce. This book acknowledges that you're dealing with something entirely different. A co-parent who views the children as tools for ongoing control and punishment. This book combines three critical elements that are rarely found together: cutting-edge child psychology research about the impact of parental manipulation, legal strategy that keeps you on solid ground with family courts, and real-world tactics that have been tested and refined by parents who've successfully navigated these treacherous waters. You won't find generic advice about healthy communication or putting the children first. Your ex-partner isn't interested in either. Instead, you'll discover specific response strategies for common manipulation tactics, documentation systems that build legal protection while preserving your energy, and boundary-setting techniques that actually work against someone who views boundaries as challenges to overcome. The interactive workshop format means you're not just reading about strategies, you're actively building your personalized protection plan. Each chapter includes exercises designed to help you identify your specific challenges, decision trees to guide you through complex situations, and template responses you can adapt to your circumstances. What makes this approach unique? Strategies specifically designed for narcissistic co-parents, not general relationship issues. Legal considerations integrated into every recommendation. Focus on appearing reasonable to outside observers while maintaining firm boundaries. Real-world testing by parents who face similar challenges. Workshop format that builds your customized action plan. Perhaps most importantly, this book recognizes that protecting your children from a narcissistic co-parent requires you to think and act strategically rather than emotionally. Every technique has been evaluated not just for its effectiveness in creating boundaries, but for how it appears to outside observers, including judges, teachers, therapists, and extended family members. Your journey from reactive to strategic. This book is organized as a series of practical workshops that will take you on a journey from reactive victim to strategic protector. Each chapter builds on the previous one, creating a comprehensive system for protecting your children and yourself. You'll begin by learning to recognize and document manipulation patterns in ways that build legal protection while preserving your emotional energy. You'll discover how to identify the specific tactics your ex-partner uses and why your current responses may be inadvertently encouraging their behavior. Next, you'll master the art of strategic communication, learning to respond in ways that shut down manipulation attempts without escalating conflict or appearing uncooperative. You'll build a toolkit of template responses for common situations, from schedule changes to emergency requests to attempts to involve you in drama. The middle sections focus on creating unshakable boundaries that protect both you and your children. You'll learn to establish rules that are legally defensible, practically enforceable, and psychologically protective. Most importantly, you'll discover how to maintain these boundaries consistently, even when facing intense pressure or emotional manipulation. Later chapters address the complex challenge of protecting your children's emotional well-being while maintaining the co-parenting relationship. You'll learn age-appropriate ways to help your children understand manipulation without putting them in the middle of the conflict, and how to create stability and security in your home that counteracts the chaos they may experience elsewhere. Your learning journey includes Chapters 1 to 2, Recognition and Strategic Positioning. Chapters 3 to 4, Child Protection and Boundary Establishment. Chapters 5 to 6, Long-Term Strategy and Crisis Management. Chapters 7 to 8, Home Stability and Psychological Protection. Chapters 9 to 10, Support Systems and Personal Resilience. The final sections provide emergency protocols for crisis situations, long-term strategies for different developmental stages, and maintenance systems to help you stay strategic rather than reactive as situations evolve. Throughout this journey, you'll complete exercises that help you build your personalized protection plan, practice new responses in low-stakes situations, and develop the confidence that comes from having clear strategies for any situation you might face. Each chapter includes worksheets, checklists, and action items that transform abstract concepts into concrete steps you can implement immediately. Your children's future starts now. Your children's emotional safety and your family's peace of mind depend on your willingness to transform from reactive to strategic. This isn't about becoming cold or calculating. It's about becoming effective in protecting what matters most. Every day you continue responding to manipulation with emotion rather than strategy is another day your children learn that boundaries don't really exist, that manipulation is normal in relationships, and that the parent trying to protect them is powerless to do so effectively. But every day you implement strategic responses is a day your children experience the security of predictable boundaries, the peace of a parent who can't be manipulated into chaos, and the protection of someone who knows how to navigate these challenges without becoming part of the problem. Commit now to working through each chapter's exercises with complete honesty and patient consistency. Some of the exercises will be uncomfortable. They'll require you to examine your own reactive patterns and acknowledge ways your current approaches may not be serving your children's best interests. But your willingness to do this work strategically and thoroughly will determine whether your children grow up feeling secure in their relationship with you, or continue to be casualties in an ongoing conflict they never chose. Your transformation starts with the next chapter. Your children are counting on you to become the strategic protector they need, even if they don't yet understand why these changes are necessary. The tools are here. The roadmap is clear. The only question is whether you're ready to do what it takes to protect your children and reclaim your peace of mind. Turn the page and begin building the strategic foundation your family needs. 1. Recognizing what you're really fighting. When standard co-parenting rules backfire. Eden sat in her therapist's office, clutching a list of co-parenting strategies she'd printed from a well-meaning parenting website. Try to communicate respectfully, she read aloud. Focus on the children's best interests. Be flexible and compromise. She looked up with tears in her eyes. I've tried all of this. Every time I attempt to be reasonable, he uses it against me. When I'm flexible, he pushes for more. When I focus on the kids, he accuses me of being controlling. What am I doing wrong? The answer isn't what she's doing wrong, but what she's trying to apply these strategies to. Traditional co-parenting advice assumes you're dealing with someone who operates from a place of good faith, emotional regulation, and genuine concern for the children's well-being. When you're co-parenting with a narcissist, these foundational assumptions crumble, leaving you feeling like you're following a map for the wrong territory entirely. The empathy assumption fallacy. Standard co-parenting guidance relies heavily on both parents having the capacity for empathy and genuine care for their children's emotional needs. Normal parents can put themselves in their child's shoes, recognize when their actions might cause emotional harm, and adjust their behavior accordingly. They understand that children need stability, consistency, and protection from adult conflicts. Narcissistic parents, however, view children as extensions of themselves rather than separate individuals with their own needs and feelings. When you follow advice about putting the children first, you're operating under the assumption that your co-parent shares this goal. Instead, they may interpret your child-focused approach as manipulation or use your concerns as opportunities to gain leverage. Ryan learned this lesson painfully when his 8-year-old daughter came home from her mother's house, visibly distressed about overhearing heated phone calls about custody arrangements. Following traditional advice, he reached out to his ex-wife with empathy and concern, suggesting they shield their daughter from these adult matters. Rather than acknowledging the child's distress, she accused him of coaching their daughter and threatened to limit his phone contact. His attempt to protect his child's emotional well-being had been reframed as evidence of his manipulative behavior. The rational communication myth. Most co-parenting resources emphasize clear, respectful communication as the foundation for successful shared custody arrangements. The underlying belief is that reasonable adults can discuss problems, find solutions, and move forward constructively. This approach works beautifully when both parties are emotionally healthy and genuinely committed to making co-parenting work. With narcissistic co-parents, your carefully crafted, respectful messages become raw material for future attacks. They may screenshot your texts, take statements out of context, or present your attempts at problem-solving as evidence of your unreasonableness to mutual friends, family members, or even court officials. The communication trap is particularly insidious because it feels so reasonable. You send a thoughtful message about your child's upcoming school event, asking about coordination for transportation. Instead of a simple yes or no response, you receive a lengthy reply that somehow transforms your practical question into a character assassination, complete with references to past grievances and accusations about your motivations. The mutual compromise illusion. Traditional co-parenting frameworks expect both parties to occasionally sacrifice their preferences for the greater good. Sometimes you attend the soccer game you'd rather skip. Sometimes you adjust your weekend plans to accommodate your co-parent's family obligations. This give and take creates balance and demonstrates to children that adults can work together respectfully. Narcissists view every interaction through a win-lose lens. Any compromise you make is seen as weakness or acknowledgement that they were right all along. Rather than creating reciprocal flexibility, your willingness to bend often leads to increasingly unreasonable demands. Eden experienced this escalation firsthand when she agreed to switch weekends to accommodate her ex-husband's work conference. She documented their text agreement carefully, thinking she was being a responsible co-parent. 2 months later, he presented this exchange to his lawyer as evidence that her schedule was chaotic and inconsistent, arguing that she was an unreliable mother who couldn't stick to court-ordered arrangements. Her kindness had been weaponized against her, and she realized she was fighting a war while following peacetime rules. Why standard advice fails in high-conflict situations. The fundamental problem with applying standard co-parenting strategies to narcissistic situations lies in the different operating systems at work. Normal co-parenting operates like a cooperative computer program, where both parties are working toward the same goal using compatible software. Co-parenting with the narcissist is like trying to run cooperative software on a system designed for competition and control. When you approach interactions with openness and good faith, expecting similar treatment in return, you're essentially showing up to a chess match thinking you're playing checkers. The rules, strategies, and objectives are completely different, but you don't realize it until you've already lost several pieces. This realization can be devastating for parents who pride themselves on being reasonable, flexible, and child-focused. You may question your own judgment wonder if you're the problem, or feel like you're going crazy. These reactions are normal and expected when healthy coping strategies repeatedly fail in toxic environments. The path forward. Recognizing that standard co-parenting rules don't apply in your situation isn't about giving up or becoming combative. It's about acknowledging reality so you can choose strategies that actually work in your specific circumstances. Just as you wouldn't use a hammer to perform surgery, you can't use tools designed for healthy relationships in toxic ones. Moving forward requires developing new frameworks specifically designed for high-conflict co-parenting situations. These approaches prioritize protection over cooperation, documentation over trust, and strategic thinking over emotional reactions. In our next chapter, we'll explore how to adopt this new mindset through the art of strategic neutrality. When children become manipulation tools. The playground was nearly empty when Gwen arrived to pick up her 7-year-old daughter from her ex-husband's weekend visit. Her daughter ran toward her, then suddenly stopped, looking confused and distressed. "Daddy says you don't love me as much as he does because you make me go to his house," the little girl whispered. "He says if you really loved me, you'd let me choose where to live." Gwen felt her heart shatter as she realized her child had become an unwitting messenger in her ex-husband's psychological warfare. This scenario plays out in countless homes where children become caught in the crossfire of high-conflict divorce situations. When one parent has narcissistic traits, the manipulation extends far beyond typical co-parenting disputes into territory that fundamentally damages children's emotional development and sense of security. The child as extension. Narcissistic co-parents don't see children as separate individuals with their own needs, feelings, and rights. Instead, children become extensions of the narcissist's identity and powerful tools for maintaining control over their ex-partner. This fundamental misunderstanding of children's autonomy creates a particularly insidious form of psychological abuse that targets both you and your children simultaneously. Children naturally love both parents and want to maintain positive relationships with everyone in their family system. Narcissistic parents exploit this natural loyalty, using it as leverage to maintain connection and control even after the marriage has ended. They understand intuitively that harming the children is the most effective way to continue inflicting pain on their ex-partner. Emotional parentification. One of the most damaging manipulation tactics involves reversing the parent-child relationship, forcing children to meet the emotional needs of their narcissistic parent. Instead of providing comfort, stability, and guidance to their child, these parents seek validation, loyalty, and emotional support from someone who should be receiving care, not providing it. Derek noticed this pattern when his 8-year-old daughter began expressing adult-level concerns about her mother's happiness and well-being. The child would call him in tears, worried that her mother seemed sad or angry, feeling responsible for cheering her up. During custody exchanges, his daughter would cling to her mother, apologizing for leaving and promising to be good while she was away. The child had been taught that her mother's emotional state was her responsibility, creating anxiety and guilt that no 8-year-old should carry. Children subjected to emotional parentification often struggle with inappropriate guilt and responsibility for adult emotions and problems. Premature loss of childhood, as they focus on caregiving rather than age-appropriate activities. Difficulty setting boundaries in future relationships due to learned patterns of over-responsibility. Chronic anxiety about others' emotional states and their role in managing them. Information warfare through children. Narcissistic co-parents frequently use children as intelligence-gathering tools, pumping them for information about your personal life, relationships, financial situation, and daily activities. Children become unwitting spies who carry information between households, often without understanding the implications of what they're sharing. This information gathering serves multiple purposes for the narcissistic parent. It satisfies their need for control and surveillance, provides ammunition for future conflicts or legal proceedings, and allows them to maintain psychological presence in your life even when they're not physically there. Gwen discovered this manipulation when her 6-year-old son began asking detailed questions about her work schedule, her friends' visits, and whether she was dating anyone. The questions felt oddly sophisticated for his age, and she noticed he would become anxious and secretive when she asked why he was curious about these topics. During the next custody exchange, her ex-husband casually mentioned specific details about her recent activities that he could only have learned through their son. Children caught in information warfare often experience conflicted loyalty between wanting to please both parents, anxiety about normal family activities that might upset one parent, premature loss of innocence about adult relationships and conflicts, confusion about appropriate boundaries between family members, loyalty binding and triangulation. Perhaps the most psychologically damaging manipulation tactic involves forcing children to choose sides in the adult conflict. Narcissistic parents create artificial competitions for their child's affection, presenting love as a limited resource that must be divided rather than something that can be freely given to both parents. This loyalty binding takes many forms. Making negative comments about the other parent in front of the child, asking children to keep secrets from their other parent, expressing hurt or disappointment when children enjoy time with their other parent, creating special activities or privileges that compete with the other parent's time, using guilt to make children feel responsible for the narcissistic parent's happiness. Derek experienced this manipulation when his ex-wife began planning elaborate surprise activities during his scheduled custody time, then expressing visible disappointment when their daughter chose to honor the existing schedule. She would sigh dramatically and say things like, "I guess you love Daddy more than me since you're choosing to go with him instead of staying for our special day." The child found herself in an impossible situation where choosing either parent felt like betrayal. She began expressing anxiety about custody transitions and asking if she could split herself in half so both parents would be happy. The psychological impact on children. Children subjected to these manipulation tactics suffer profound psychological consequences that can persist well into adulthood. They learn that love is conditional, that their worth depends on managing adult emotions, and that expressing natural affection for both parents is dangerous. The constant pressure to navigate adult conflicts while maintaining relationships with both parents creates a state of chronic stress that interferes with normal childhood development. These children often struggle with anxiety, depression, difficulty trusting others, and problems forming healthy relationships later in life. Recognition and response. Understanding these manipulation patterns is the first step in protecting your children from psychological harm. When you can identify what's happening, you can begin developing strategies to shield your children while maintaining your own emotional equilibrium. Rewiring your inner compass after manipulation. Madison stared at the text message from her ex-husband, reading it for the 5th time. "You're being completely unreasonable about the pickup time. I've never been late, and you're just trying to control me like always." She felt that familiar knot in her stomach, the one that made her question her own memory and perception. Hadn't he been late just last week? Or was she remembering wrong? Maybe she was being too rigid. Maybe she was the problem. This internal dialogue had become so automatic that she barely recognized it anymore, the constant self-doubt that had replaced her once reliable intuition. This scenario illustrates one of the most devastating long-term effects of living with narcissistic manipulation: the complete erosion of your ability to trust your own perceptions, memories, and emotional responses. Even after the relationship has ended, the psychological damage continues to affect your decision-making, boundary setting, and ability to protect yourself and your children. The architecture of doubt. Gaslighting is perhaps the most insidious weapon in the narcissist's arsenal, because it doesn't just attack your current perception. It systematically dismantles your ability to trust your own experiences, memories, and emotional responses. After months or years of having your reality consistently challenged, minimized, or